Hello, Sue. Good to see you. Make sure that you are using the chat box as we are going to ask you some questions throughout this course. We're not just going to be the talking heads. This is a conversation with you and us. And I have an incredible person here with us that I'm going to introduce in just a second. But before we talk about us, this is about you. Welcome, everyone. You shared with us where you're calling in from. And I want to hear from you. What is one thing that really got you interested in learning more about the Milton Erickson language patterns that made you sign up to be here and to learn more from Brigitta and Rex? Put it in the chat box. Share with us one thing that you want to walk away with that you're hoping to learn, because we're going to give you tons of information that will also give us a good insight of where we are going with this information and how we can serve you even better in the future. So my name is Brigitta Hoeferle. Some of you I have met personally or on another Zoom. I am the CEO of the Center of NLP, and I'm invited to speak on stages around the world. And on one of those stages, I got to, and please make sure that you are muting yourself so I don't hear me twice. Great, thank you for that. And I have an incredible person here with me, and he is not just anyone. He's Rex Sikes. He is a life transformer. He's one of the original trainers. If anyone is familiar with NLP, he was one of the original trainers with Richard Bandler. And first and foremost, he just released the book not long ago, Life on Your Terms. Go get the book. He might even show it to us in the in his little window that we see him. He has created incredible programs and he's teaching others. And I want to bring him out really quick, and then I'm going to turn it over to Rex. Rex, thanks for being here. How are you, my friend?
I am fantastic, and thank you for being here and making this time available for everyone. I'm thrilled, and yes, you can get a lot to take away. We are under a time constraint today, just so that you know, and but we're going to do everything we can to jam-pack this next hour with all the wonderful information that we can, and to know that this obviously is a beginning. And it's wonderful to be here with each of you. Some of you are my students, and I've known you for years, and others I've gotten to know recently. And so if you trained with Brigitta or you trained with me, congratulations. I'm glad you'd be here. If you trained with somebody else, I'm sorry for that. No, I'm kidding. I mean, there are a lot of fine trainers out there, but you should know there are a lot of frauds out there too. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that you get presented with the best and the finest information, as well as, if you're interested in training, the finest training. So with that in mind, I'm ready to begin whenever you are, and hope we're ready to strap in and get going.
Let's get going. Let's roll up our sleeves, make sure that you have something to write with and something to write on, as we are looking into the concise introduction to Milton Erickson language patterns. Now, who is Milton Erickson? He was a psychiatrist and psychologist. He was rather ill, and he developed some strategies that we want to peel back the layers and the onions, the layers of the onion today, because most people that come to Rex and myself, and probably if you're a thought leader here on this call as well, they want to let go of the old stuff and invite the new, but they don't know how. And we're going to peel back some of those layers. But before we do that, we are all about you. We're all about people and learning and experiencing new vistas and exploring those new vistas so you can make change simple and enjoyable. We're all about increasing the qualities of your lives, of my life, of your life. And that comes down to the quality of our communication, because the differentiation from success to failure starts with your mindset, starts with your quality strategies, starts with your energy, starts with the knowledge that you have, and then continuing to implement that. And that's why these tools are so important and so necessary. And we're committed to you. We're committed, as Rex already said, we don't just teach this to anyone. We teach this to the people that really are practicing in methodologies that are in integrity to help others. And you have heard me, if you have ever worked with me, you have heard me say, we're all about win-win-wins. We're creating win-win-wins, a win for you, a win for us, and a win for the greater good. Who else wins? Your company, your family, your community. So we are creating this big, big ripple. Rex, we are here as you have founded the idea seminars, and you're the creator of mind design and attitude activator and directed questions. You have created a lot of programs, and you have also spoken around the world. Share with us what makes the Milton Erickson language pattern so important and so necessarily and so unique.
Wow, great question. And thank you, Brigitta. Yeah, it's an amazing thing. Milton has the profound honor of being called essentially the grandfather of hypnotherapy in this country, and while he's been gone for many years, the work that he left behind and the ability of us in NLP to model what he did and be able to present it and use it has been nothing short of wonderful and miraculous, and brought great benefit to all. Milton had a number of beliefs that he operated from. One was that people are resourceful and they don't necessarily know or are in tune or tapped into their resources. So they oftentimes don't realize what's holding them back or keeping them back. And when you can, in a persuasive but gentle and permissive way, help them to unlock that door or that gate, because it swings both ways kind of thing, people can connect up with their resources, with opportunities and possibilities that they never, ever considered before. And our job as transformation agents, or helping people, whether you're a professional in that arena, or you just want to help your children or your spouse or your friends and neighbors, it's learning how to phrase things in ways that are inviting to other people, that they can imagine and then act on without being overly silly or manipulative or abusing the rapport that you have between people. So it's really a communication model of respect and integrity.
Yeah. The integrity is going to come up. You're going to hear that more than twice or three times on this call and on this class.
Now, that said, cult leaders, politicians, religious leaders, marketers, the news media, salespeople, I mean, a lot of people have been exposed to these kinds of materials and use them for other purposes as well. And so what we also want to be able to do is not only introduce you, if you don't already know these, introduce you to the power of these processes and these patterns, but also increase your awareness so that if your people are using them on you in a nefarious or less than glorious way, that you can become aware of the pattern, recognize it, and be able to protect yourself as well. So it's like a double-edged sword. You have the ability to go out and be more persuasive and influential and win-win-win for people, and or protect yourself or others when things are being wielded against you. And it is important to know, because you see, this stuff is out there all the time in the media and in marketing and everywhere. Many of the marketers are really big internet marketers today, are all using these things that they got from neurolinguistic programming from people like us, and then just took them and put them out there to say, hey, and so you're learning it, you'll learn it with us.
So I love what you just said, Rex, that we're able to, we're giving you the lenses basically so you can see it, to shield yourself. And I want to give this statement: the difference between impactful language and manipulative language is the intention behind it. And that's it. That's it. We are here to give you the information so you can do more good, be better at what you're doing, be better communicators with your family, with your spouse, with your partner, your business partner, with your clients. And, as I was
interested in that?
Exactly.
If that's for you, either raise your hand or type, yes, that's me. I'm interested in that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I love this conversation. As we were going through, and as I was preparing for today, I I got this statement from the, I think it was the Wikipedia or the dictionary. Language, hypnotic language, the Milton Erickson language patterns is language that is undeniably true or offers options and possibilities. Ericksonian language always involves statements that are true or are true to the listener. And then the listener decides, is that true? Is that true for me? So Rex, Milton Erickson, we're both NLP master practitioners and master trainers. And we look at the NLP side of language. Where does Milton Erickson come into NLP? How does that differentiate, or how does that belong together?
Well, interestingly enough, in the early days, Bandler and John Grinder, who was a linguist at the University of Santa Cruz, were looking at, therapists and how they were able to affect change or not affect change and what was going on. And what we discovered at the time was that therapists had primarily one question, and that was why. You say, I'm feeling down, they go, why? Well, because my, life isn't working. Well, why? And so because he was a linguist, it was like, how do we get people to answer better? How do we find out more information? And so they looked at language and created something called the meta model, which essentially is how you use language to be limited and how you use language to be resourceful. And the meta model was the template to be able to say, well, if you ask these questions, you can unlock the resourcefulness, or you can discover the limitations. You can find out how people are thinking about things or believing things in their head, and then be able to connect them up with the resources, or connect them up to where they need to go in order to be more resourceful and find opportunities instead of being stuck. As part of that process, they ultimately ended up with Milton Erickson and found that what Milton was doing, using the meta model, and what we would call modeling approaches, is they wanted to find out how Milton was so effective. And Milton did many, many things. And so they then began to codify or to create a model of what Milton was doing. So we have essentially two sides of one coin. It's how we understand language, how we use language, how it affects us, and how we can intentionally, deliberately use it versus how we haphazardly usually use it. And so we have these models to help us, and they're models of the same thing, but they aim in different directions. If one is going north and the other is going south, it's important to have both of them to understand what people are doing. And so they're, again, two sides of one coin, but they are so incredibly powerful. And one of the best things that we can do, because I love both, is to share with you, because in some ways, some of the patterns are similar in both models. There's some overlap, in other words, because it is about the same thing. But it's one is to try and gather the information from a person and find out what's holding them back or how they can be resourceful. And the other is to be able to suggest things and invite them to consider things they might not have ever considered, so that you can be more influential or persuasive, without begging or whining or, trying to manipulate someone. So they're both beautiful models.
So you're saying that other people are using hypnotic language, not just to induce hypnosis.
Well, just the fact that we speak is pretty much hypnosis. If I say, would you like to go to Hawaii, and there's these beautiful waves and they're white capped and there's these great mountains and these waterfalls and these palm trees, and I'm able to paint an image in your head about how wonderful or marvelous Hawaii is, and you go, I would like to go there on a vacation, then what I've done is I've kind of hypnotically influenced you. You take the word hypnosis out of it, I've influenced you. Take the word influence out of it, I've shared something with you. Take the word shared out, I've just been stating something and you went, wow, that's cool. I can imagine that, or I feel that, or so in other words, it's part of it is how is desire created in other people through what we say and what we do, and how we say and how we do it is truly important. So if it's getting your kids to pick up their room or choose the right school or do their homework, or your spouse to take you out to dinner, or you to take them out to dinner, or to get someone to invest in themselves or their business or their programs or whatever, it's a way to do it with respect and to do it more easily and more readily, because you're bypassing resistance, because you're creating the kind of inner imagery and inner feelings and making suggestions without creating conflict. So you're opening the door for them to go, yeah, that's cool. I would like to do that.
So anyone can make use, and anyone already probably is making use of the language patterns. Some do it very artfully and skillfully, and some don't.
Well, yes, I mean, this is a great point. We're all, whatever native language you're speaking, you're giving suggestions and persuading or controlling or trying to influence people in one way or the other. You're asking questions, you're stuck, or you're resourceful. So language is language, and we all kind of intuitively, just as humans on the planet, grow up speaking a language. So we use these patterns anyway in many ways. Some we use inadvertently that actually prevent us from getting what we want because we don't know what we're doing. And so we do it accidentally or inadvertently or kind of shoot ourselves in the foot. And others we do because we do them because they become habits and we don't know any of the other ones. And so we only do the same things over and over again. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't because we don't have additional choices. So we don't want to take anything away from people. We want to give them more choices. We want to give you more choices so that you can artfully communicate well with other people, or exceptionally well with other people, by utilizing and learning these things so that you can deliver it. Brigitta mentioned it a moment ago. It's with intention, so that you can intend to use these patterns so that you can create the most win-win-win for yourself and for other people.
Yeah.
So, anyone down for that? If you are, say yes in the chat, or let us know, or raise your hands, or just, because I mean, after all, it is about increasing my, Brigitta, all of our effectiveness to be able to communicate respectfully, with integrity, and actually also, it's okay to get what you want, as long as you're not preventing anyone from getting what they want. If you're not stepping on another person or competing or crushing or that kind of, then I'm all down with you getting whatever it is that you desire, legally, of course. And that's what these patterns are really good and useful for.
As you're talking, Rex, I'm looking through what people are wanting to get out of today. There's people that are improving their communication, listening better, being better communicators, always learning more about NLP, improved ways for listening for language, looking for new strategies to implement in their business using this model. So it all comes down, because we've all heard it, it all comes down to building relationships.
Right.
And building relationships starts with either one person is talking and the other person is listening. Hopefully not two people are talking at the same time. But it boils down to becoming a master of conversational influence.
So could I give some examples? Anybody
Please.
want some examples?
Who wants examples? By show of hands.
Let's okay. So here's the thing. How many of you are familiar with the stage hypnotist? Anyone been in a stage hypnotist show? Ever seen anyone on TV, or been in a college or in a place where they do that? Are you familiar with this concept of post-hypnotic suggestion? That's when the hypnotist usually at the end of the show says, okay, I'm going to say, the person I'm touching right now, they've got their eyes closed or like this. Person I'm touching right now, whenever I say the phrase, good night, everyone, you're going to yell at the top of your lungs, I taught, putty tat. You ever seen that kind of thing? So he says, well, thank you, everybody. I'm glad you be at the show. Good night, everybody. And the person goes, I taught, putty tat. Well, thank you very much, sir. That's great. But I'm trying to say good night, everybody. I taught, putty tat. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Well, okay, so again, good night, everybody. I taught. Have you seen this thing? You know what I'm talking about? And if not, you can certainly find evidence. So post-hypnotic suggestion is simply a suggestion that's given to someone in hypnosis. And the argument here really is that most people are in hypnosis all day long. It's not hard to get a person into that kind of trance, if you want to use that word. It's a little bit trickier to get them out of their everyday conditioning or out of their everyday trances that we live in. But for purposes of this example, you have the hypnotist on stage, and there's a lot of things that are going on at that time. But in NLP terms, it's a suggestion, it's an anchor. If you're familiar with anchoring, which means it's like Pavlov's bell. You rang the bell, and the dog salivated. So whenever he uses these words, because it's paired to this behavior that he wants or she wants to elicit, so whenever The hypnotist says, okay, good night, everybody. Go, I thought I saw a pussycat. There's their anchor. That's the conditioned response. That's the bell being rung and the dog or the person, barking. I thought I saw a pussycat. All right. So it's reliable and it's effective and it could last forever. It doesn't always, but it could last forever. But you're familiar with the notion of post-hypnotic suggestions, correct? Do you understand how powerful they are in everyday life? Because think about this. You were probably told as a young child, wear your boots, don't get your feet wet, because if you do, you'll get a cold or you might get sick. That's the post-hypnotic suggestion. And people today go, well, I better button up. I'm going outside. It's snowing. The weather's bad. I might get a cold. Or people say things like, if I don't have my coffee in the morning, I'm a total bear. I have no energy. I have nothing. I'm angry. I'm this. Post-hypnotic suggestion. They may say things like, you never listen to me. Wow, talk about that as a command. You never listen to me. So whenever things are going on and something occurs, the person will see you're not listening. Or, when you look at me that way, I feel bad. Or you could say, when you look at me that way, I feel really loved and cared for. It just depends on what's going on. But these are anchored, they're associations, they're triggers for us to go on. So here's the thing, these post-hypnotic suggestions are part of our conditioning when we grew up, and we have lots of them, and they get exchanged by the people around us, and we absorb them like sponges, but they are the basis of our beliefs and our limitations. And what is a belief? You hear this thing, false evidence appearing real is a definition of fear. We fear things because it's false evidence. Well, some of our beliefs are false evidence appearing real too. In other words, getting your feet wet and getting cold has been scientifically demonstrated that it's probably not true. And people can have all the energy they want without their coffee. But guess what? This is paired in their mind. It's paired in their neurology. It's become part of their DNA. I can't live without my coffee. The same is true if they go, I can't afford it. I don't have time. I don't know how. Things just never work out. I'm not lucky. Those people are lucky, but why? And so we are susceptible to our very own post-hypnotic suggestions, as well as the ones that we give other people. When you do that, I get angry. Whenever you do that, I get angry. Why? Because you're doing it. Now, this is stuff that in the meta model and in the Milton model, we could begin to explore so that it's like not about them making us angry. It's how do we get control of our own self so that we no longer are anchored to getting angry when they do that, when we see that, when we hear that, when we feel that, when we experience that, whether it's them or it's something on television or the radio or wherever we are. I mean, think about someone giving you the finger while you're driving down the road, post-hypnotic suggestion, if you give it right back, if you go, so breaking those things up gives us freedom to explore new ways to behave and to overcome limitations in our own thinking and our own belief system that prevent us from living the kind of life that you want to live. Now, some of these serve you and some of them don't. You hear the national anthem of your country, and if you love the national anthem of your country, you go, I agree. If you don't, it's a very different experience. So there are these things all around us. They're anchors, or you can call them post-hypnotic suggestions, but typically the way we interact with people is we're always giving suggestions one way or the other, especially this. And this is insidious, and people do it without even thinking about it. You know how it is when you have a headache? When you're feeling down, when you're feeling bloated, when life is going crappy, that's an installation pattern. Think about that. The other person's just sitting there going, da, 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 and you go, when you feel this way, and when you feel that way, and when you feel, you're telling people how to feel. That's what all advertisers are doing, aren't they? If you have flaky hair, you're not worth anything. If you have smelly pits, no one's going to like you. It's all hypnotic conditioning. So what do? You go out and buy the brand that you're most familiar with because it's the one that's advertised most, that you think are going to give you sweet smelling pits and everyone's going to like you. Or you think if I buy these shoes, people are going to just gravitate to me because I've got the right shoes. So we're very susceptible to this stuff, and we use this with other people all the time. I mean, I run a clubhouse room, people come in and say, well, when you're this way and you're that way and you're this way. And it's like, oh my gosh, no, it's not when I'm that way. Maybe you are that way, but I'm not that way. But it's not the place to pick that apart for them. So the point is people operate out of post-hypnotic suggestions without any awareness, without realizing what they're doing and or what they're doing to other people inadvertently. And they do it to their kids inadvertently. So we know a couple of things. Let me add a couple. Is this valuable? Are you liking this so far? Because I want to be able to give you some value in the amount of time that we have. So if you can say yes, in the chat, or let me know somehow.
You can also use the reaction button on the bottom. And for the ones that have taken, how many of you, by show of hands, really quick, have ever taken an NLP course? By show of hands. Okay, thank you for that.
I have.
You've taught them, Rex. And you've learned that, of course, in order to teach it. What you were hearing Rex saying, for the ones that have taken the NLP course, what were you hearing Rex as he was describing the post-hypnotic suggestions? If someone does something, then that means something to me. Who knows what that's called? Not that I'm, this is not a test. I'm just curious to find out how many of you are realizing of what that is? Because when you have the lenses, and some of you that have taken the NLP programs have those lenses, and you're able to see that, and you're able to see and hear and feel for the limitations in one's communication, and either, help them recover from it if you have enough rapport. It's not an anchor. It is, the Pavlov bell is a stimulus response. It is a complex equivalent. It is a cause and effect. Yep, exactly. Good work. Good work, you guys. Love it. So Rex, there is so much for us to uncover. And it starts out, you talked about, I like to call it the BS, the belief system of people. And sometimes it is a BS for people, and sometimes it's a very supportive belief system. How does one get to really be aware of their conditioning, of their programming? Because parents, like you said, they will do it to their children inadvertently. They mean no harm, but they haven't learned it any other way. So it's a model that they've taken. It's an outdated model that they've taken, and it perpetuates. How do you break that pattern?
Well, the first thing is self-awareness, to become aware, or being able to notice what's going on either in yourself or other people. Most people aren't even aware of their self-talk. They just know it when it gets to a critical mass, and then they hear that part, but they're not hearing all the other stuff that they're actually hearing and responding to or reacting to. And so part of it is noticing. That's why we do the programs, is to connect people up with these patterns so that they can identify them. And identifying them is just the first step. Once you notice them, then to be able to interact with them, or to change them, or to use them in a way that serves you is really important. So it's giving you control over a process that otherwise goes on, and most people, it's outside of awareness and they don't notice it. So when we were dealing with in original days with psychiatrists and psychologists and therapists, and they only had this one question, we didn't want to take away, their choices or their abilities. We wanted to give them more abilities. So when you get into a program, like the programs that Brigitta or I offer, or, we will restrict certain things while you're learning. For example, we'll tell you, don't do that now. You can do that later, but don't do that now, because we want to add in some other things so that you can increase awareness, and then you can use and practice the patterns that we're demonstrating and sharing. And then later you can return to some of the skills and choices. So for example, the word why. When people come into a practitioner program, we usually say, don't ask the question why. Not because why isn't a useful question, but when you're learning these skills, there are other questions. How do you know that? What causes, why does that cause that? So that you can break up the connections that people have in their belief systems, or this false evidence appearing real, so that they can get beyond the imitations. How does that mean that? And we're not going to go into all that stuff today, but it's both the awareness of what is occurring, so that you can disconnect it if you need to, or if it's not being connected, you can connect it when you need to. It's kind of like sometimes you have to pull the plug out of the wall, and other times you have to plug it back in. And so that's the point. And so through awareness, that's one of the most things you can do. So, for example, have you ever heard people say never say never? Like only fools say never. Do you ever say never? Never. Right? And so people aren't aware that they're doing the very thing that they claim they aren't, or that they don't want to do. So for example, And if you had training, you understand this. And even if you haven't, you might understand this. But, you know, the idea that the words don't or not drop out. So you can't say, if I say, don't think of a zebra riding on a giraffe right now flying over the building that you're living in, it's like, oops, too late. You know, you had to imagine it or sense it or experience it in some fashion, whether you saw an image or not. But I'm suggesting something which is a distortion in language. There's things obviously left out, you know, things that we cover in a program. But the point is that you cannot not represent something. If I say a red Volkswagen Beetle, and you're familiar with that, you probably have. Or if I say this, dog. Anyone think of a dog or have a picture of a dog or imagine? Could be their dog, could be a good dog, could be a friendly dog, could be a dog that bit them, hate them, scared them. You know, it doesn't matter. Now watch if it changes. Wet dog. You have a different dog? And it may, or maybe the same dog that got wet. So we can't not represent things when it said so. And here's the thing: the algorithms, the search engines like Google or Bing or DuckDuckGo. If you say don't look for basketball, what will you get your search to come from? What will be there? Be all about basketball. Don't give me the political candidates. You'll get all the politics. You can't not say don't do this and expect not to get it. I don't want to know how to cook. I want to know how to bake. It's not going to help. And yet this is what we do with children, you know, and the example is don't spill your milk, you know. And what happens in order for them to not spill their milk, especially when they're young and they're growing up, they have to make a picture of spilling the milk, which means you've now suggested spilling the milk. And now you're trying to say, but don't do that. And so what typically happens when you tell someone, don't spill your milk or don't fall or don't, you know, don't forget your watch, don't be late, you know, the kinds of things that we tell people all the time. Don't get mad, don't get mad. The one that really scares me is don't shoot.
Oh, geez.
I'm like, I say, put the gun away, but don't say don't shoot. Don't hit me in the face. I mean, you know, it's kind of like, so we're giving hypnotic suggestions to people all the time. You know, don't do that. Stop. I told you not to do that. Now, if you say, don't forget your watch, you say, remember to take it with you. Don't be late. Remember to be on time. Don't spill your milk. Carry it carefully. So if you notice that you've now phrased something, which essentially is a post-hypnotic suggestion or a suggestion, I told a putty cat. You give them the other side. Now you're pacing both parts of the experience, and especially with children. Don't get upset that it didn't work out. Don't hate your teacher. They're just trying to do good. You know what I mean? I mean, in other words, we need to be very sensitive to what we suggest to other people, but also these are the things that we say. Don't worry, Rex. Don't be afraid, you know, and we're suggesting to ourselves the very things that we don't want. I don't want to be broke. What's in the mind? I'm broke. I don't want to be lonely. I'm lonely. It's the things that we represent. So what the brain is really good at is finding associations. It's finding all the different kinds of things, if left untethered, you know, is find all the reasons why things don't work out. You know, why am I such an idiot? People will say, well, because of all the stupid things you do.
Evidence procedure. We're looking for evidence.
And the brain will be glad to give it to you. If you say, why am I such a schmuck? Boom. If you say, how come I'm so incredible? It'll go boom. The problem with people is that they don't know what they're suggesting to themselves or others a large portion of the time, because 95 to 98% of us, we run on automatic. We run on our habitual patterns, our conditioning that we've done since birth on. Sometimes we update them, but we're running on automatic. It's the autopilot is on the car. It's just going, you know, and it's going. And your opportunity, though, is while that's running, is to steer it where you want to go. And so that's why we're offering this. We say you need to understand how to steer your language so that you steer your thoughts, or steer your thoughts so you steer your language, so that you communicate more effectively to yourself to get what you want, as well as to other people, so you could get what you want and they can get what they want, and so it's win-win-win. So any of this making sense?
Rex, I have a question. The patterns of the hypnotic technique starts out with the map is not the territory. Now, how many of you have ever heard of the map is not the territory? By show of hands. Okay, so several of you. Cindy has a hand coming out of the off. That's a little creepy and funny and scary all at the same time. So the map is not the territory. I want to pick up something that you just said when you said, think of a dog or don't think of a dog.
Right.
Everyone was thinking of a dog, but you guys, wherever you're sitting in your office, including Rex, did not think, or probably not, that's a suggestion or a presupposition, did not think of the dog that I thought of.
Right.
But you asked us to think of a dog. And then when I communicate in that way, what does that do when I say, hey, Rex, think of a dog? And then Rex starts describing this dog. And I'm like, no, that's the wrong dog, Rex. You're describing the wrong dog. That is not the right dog. You are wrong, Rex.
So let's do this, for example. You're walking along the beach. Can you imagine just being on the beach and you can feel the sand underneath your feet and you hear the surf and maybe there's some sounds around you, might be seagulls or birds or whatever. Assuming that you're at the ocean, you could be at a lake, it doesn't really matter. There's a certain air quality. Some for the ocean might be salty, for others it may not, but you're walking along the beach and you can feel the firmness of the sand underneath and the warmth or the breeze of whatever the day is like. And off in the distance, in the sand, you see a beach ball. And you look at the beach ball, and so you walk over to it. And as you get it, you pick it up. And it's a green and silver ball with bees all over it. Now, when I first said you see a beach ball, did you see a green and silver beach ball with bees all over it? Or did you see something else?
I saw something else.
So something else. You saw whatever you thought of as a beach ball. In some cases, that's the multicolored red and yellow and white and blue kind of beach ball, because I used the word beach ball. If I said you'd seen a ball, but now I've changed it by saying it's a beach ball that's green and silver and it's got bees on it. And that can be jarring. You're like, wait a second. No, that's not right. I saw a different ball. Now you had to switch images, right? So what you represent when the word beach ball is in your head is different than what I then later painted. So when you say the map is not the territory, you have your own map, you have your own territory, and I can't know what that is until, and we may share some things in common, but I can't know what that is. So if I'm not careful with how I suggest things or phrase things, I get you going along. You might be on, how many saw the beach? How many were able to walk easily on a beach, or sense it in their mind? They don't have to actually see it, but you had to experience it. And then you get to the ball and you pick up the ball and suddenly it changes in your hands and you're like, wait, that's not right. Did anyone experience that?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine if you're selling people on something that they really want to do, and you have an idea of what is that the outcome is, and they have a different idea, and you haven't bothered to find out what they want. And so you just say, hey, guess what? It's this. And they go, no, that's a disconnect. So because we're not paying attention to how people represent their experience or know what their experience is or appealing to what their map is, oftentimes we're bumping up against it. And what we want to do is find a way to align with it so that we can more easily walk the path together. And I can say, isn't that amazing? Wouldn't you like to be able to do that? And they go, yeah, I would, as opposed to, I can't do that. Or that's not what I meant. I didn't have that in mind. So it's learning how to, what we call in NLP or hypnotics, to be able to pace and to also be able to understand where another person is coming from. You've heard I'm sure you've heard this, you don't eat the menu, right? You eat the meal. The menu is a representation of what's available in that restaurant for you, but you know enough not to bite into the plastic or the cardboard. You order off the menu. Well, the same is true with our internal maps. It's not the same as what's going on out there. It's what we think is going on there. And sometimes it's false evidence appearing real. In almost all cases, it's false evidence appearing real because we delete and we distort and we generalize. We leave things out. We make, rules for all time and place. And we live through our maps, and that's how your map and my map, meet like out here somewhere, and it either gets along or they keep bouncing off each other until we learn how to create rapport or how we begin to phrase things that allow both of us to have that experience of trust and understanding. And did I answer your question?
Yes, and the beautiful thing is that we have an opportunity when we become aware of that we have an opportunity to exude more flexibility in our behavior, in our communication, in our being, and that is choice, right? Andre asked earlier in the chat box, how does one have more choices that impacts their decisions?
Beautiful question. So I've got some answers for that, and I hope that you'll stick with me and stick with us and come with us on this journey. So what I talked about, we took away the word why. I'm gonna go through a couple of things now. One, we eliminate in early like practitioner programs, we take away the word, or we restrict its use for the time being, of the word try. Right. And what we know of how we categorize it in linguistics is try as an invited inference. So if I say, she tried to open the door, you don't know if it opened or didn't open. I mean, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. In some ways, we say, well, she tried and then failed, but if she could try it and found that it was open, to her delight and surprise, the door was open. If I say to you, try the pizza, it doesn't mean that you're not going to like it or can't like it or won't like it. It just means to sample it. So the word try has different uses. If I said attempt the pizza, you'd go, what are you talking about? So I use the word try. But if I say, well, try and get over your problems, I'm saying, well, maybe you will, maybe you won't, or try. There's a big difference between the word try and the word do. If you say, I'm going to try the pizza, we understand what it means. If you say, I'm going to try to make money this year, well, maybe you will, maybe you won't, right? Just like if I try the pizza, maybe I like it, maybe I won't. But if you say, I am going to make money this year, that's it, period. I am committed to the process of making more money this year, or I'm going to be more loving toward my children. I'm going to be the good parent that I ought to be. I'm going to make changes in my life. I'm going to do it. That's different. And so when people say, hey, would you like to do this? I say, well, I'll try it. And so what are they saying to themselves? I mean, it's very kind of wimpy kind of, yeah, I'll give it a try, as opposed to I am committed to doing this. So being able to do something versus trying something can open up your choices, and it might not. But here's something that I hope you will really appreciate. You know the word but? Not what you have at the back of you, but the word but. Okay. We say that but is a mental eraser, meaning it erases everything that goes before it. So if I say, I love you, but you kind of maybe, or, well, that's good news, but, right? Or you look great, but, you're like, okay, there's a shoe that's going to drop here, right? Or I love you, but you go, well, maybe you really don't, right? It tends to erase what you just said. It takes the believability out of it. So here's the interesting thing. And this will have to do with your map. It'll have to do with mental imagery. It'll have to do with anchors and post-hypnotic suggestions and the whole thing. If I say to you, would you like to go to dinner? Or would you like to go to the game? Or you want to do this program with us? Or do you want to invest in yourself? You can say, as many people will, well, I want to, but I can't afford it. Or I want to, but I don't have time. Or I want to, but I don't know how. Anybody ever do that? I want to do it, but I don't know how. I want to do it, but I can't afford it. I really want to do it, but I can't afford it. How many people have ever done that? It's common in our country. And then what happens after that? Your brain fills you in with all the excuses and all the reasons why you can't do it.
Evidence.
Post-hypnotic suggestion, right? So I want to do it. I want to go to dinner, but I can't afford it. I want to do the program, but I can't afford it. I don't have time. I can't afford it. Now, here's the thing. I want to is erased. It's just gone. And I can't is what's left in the mind. I want to disappears, is a mental eraser, but I'm broke. So what's left in the mind? The image in the mind is broke, not the image of I want it, but the image that I'm broke. So the last thing left in their mind after that is whatever it is. And if you said it to yourself, I want to, but I can't. I want to, but I'm broke. I want to, that I don't know how. Those are the images that you are left with that are affecting you in the same way. If somebody gives you the finger and you get really mad, it is affecting you that way. Kinesthetically, your feelings, everything. And what it is false evidence appearing real. So what to do? Okay. It's an anchor, it's a hypnotic suggestion, it's a trigger, it's a post-hypnotic suggestion, it's whatever you want to call it. You say it to yourself or others, and these form the basis of your beliefs and your limitations. And it's why people, maybe even you, miss possibilities and opportunity because of the post-hypnotic suggestions, the mental habits that you and I and everyone's been conditioned to accept and live from without question or without the awareness that this is going on. And so you accept as true this fact. And so what we want to do and what this program is about is to help you break through your own conditioning and your limitations to see possibilities and opportunities and resources you might not ever otherwise recognize and be able to utilize. It's all false beliefs and false evidences appearing real. So the last image is the problem, not what they want. And there's no solution. There's just a problem. I want to go, but I can't. I want to go, but I'm broke. I want to go to the game, but I don't have time. I want to go to the game, but my wife won't let me, my husband won't let me, whatever. I want to invest in my business, but I don't have the money, all right? So knowing that the last image is the problem and it's not what they want, you can say, knowing this, oh, so you can't afford it, but you really want to go to dinner, or you really want to go to the game, or you really want to do this program, or you really want to invest in it. Right? So you switch it around, but we're not getting rid of the word, which some people say never use the word but. Now we're using it, but in a powerful way. So that the last image in their head is of what they want. I really want, oh, so you can't afford it, but you really want to go to dinner, or you really want to invest in yourself. You don't have time, but you don't know how, but you know, you're broke, but, all right, so that's the first thing, right? You're switching it in their head. You're switching the mental image. You're making what they don't want or what they can't do be diminished, and not the last image, not the Google search thing that throws up, I can't do this. You're making the image of, oh, but you really want to do this. I really want to enroll in the program. I really want to change my life. I really want to make a difference for people, right? You're leaving them with that instead of the problem. Now, how you say it, the tone, the look, the tone, the tempo, how you say, I didn't say, oh, you're really broke, but you want to go. I said, oh, you're really broke, but you really want to go, right? So you want them to have that feeling of, yeah, I really do want to go. Okay, now what can you do? So you can't afford it, but you really want to go. You really want to attend. You really want to invest. And now we can use other conjunctions. We can say, and, because now we're going to attach something. And why don't we put our head together and see all the different ways we could come up with a way for you to afford it? Would you like to do that? Would that be useful? Couldn't that be better? Or so you don't have the money, but you really want to do it. And I know that you and I can find ways to make this happen for you. Would you like to do that? Okay. So how you say it is important. And then what you attach to it is important. So let's think of the many ways we can make this happen, or how you can make this happen, or you can't afford it, or you can't enroll, or you can't invest, or whatever, you know. But you can add other words in there too, which is like the basis of the NLP. Let's find out the many different ways, or let's find a way that you could easily begin to make this happen for yourself, or you can't afford it, but you'd really like to go. So why don't we find out some possibilities that you can put into action right now that'll make that possible for you? Would you like that? Okay. Would you like to be doing this with me? You get it? How many understand this? Is this something that you can understand and use? Is this valuable for you?
Rex, this is a beautiful conversation, and I love how you showcase the but. That just came out completely wrong. I want to hear from you. What are you taking away from this segment the mental and linguistic eraser, BUT. What are you realizing? Put it in the chat box. What are you realizing what this creates, and how does this serve to create these win-win-wins, and how does that serve the people that you are doing business with or building relationships with? Because if they live in their own limitations, Rex, there's not going to be a win-win-win, not a win for them and not a win for anyone else.
Well, very true. And the other thing is figure out how you can apply this with your family, with your friends, and in your business, because you may be in sales, you may have, negotiations that you have to do. And just this little tiny piece, think about how much power that this gives you just in being able to say this. And you know what? We present a whole lot more. There's a whole lot more coming down the pike. But the thing is, again, how you say it and what you say helps them consider the possibilities and make images of doing it. And you're connecting them up with the possibility, with the opportunity, and with the resourcefulness. Is that valuable for you? And the other thing is how we phrase things to ourselves as well as others makes an incredible difference, because without the ability to discover possibilities, our opportunities, or our inner resources, we will be stuck doing what we've always done. And you know the definition of insanity, right? To do what you always did, expecting a different result, right? So this is a way that we can, once you start learning these patterns, you begin increasing your batting average. And you become far more influential than you may have ever thought you could ever be. Well, is that something you would like? Because if you like these ideas and you want to begin using these to help yourself and others, I would tap yes in the chat. I would say just tap yes in the chat. I say tap, should be type.
Tap and type. So
tap and type.
Cindy wrote in the chat, this creates more choice. Beautiful.
And that's what it's all about. It's we are infinite possibilities, infinite opportunities, and infinitely resourceful. It's in our DNA. It's from the time we've been birthed to here. All the things that most people consider limitations and problems, and all the horrible things that happen that no one typically ever celebrates, are gifts, and they're there to be able to be utilized, to learn from, and to grow and evolve. And because most people don't ever notice this. They're so busy caught up with the post-hypnotic suggestions, the anchors, the beliefs, the false evidence believing real, that they are limited in some way, that they can't do things in other ways, that they don't know how, and that's, and so they don't ever take the action steps that you need to take in order to be able to move forward in a way that is maximally productive for you and positive for you, as well as for other people. So it's connecting people up with resources, creating flexibility, and having more choices. We don't want to take choices away, but what we do want to do is give you a few simple choices that allow you to maximize all of your efforts and increase your batting average, so that you're far, 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 far more effective. And the more effective you become, the more effective you can become, because the more you do, the more you can become capable of doing. And so that's why we're presenting this here, and why we do what we do. That's why Brigitta and I have been doing this for decades.
Rex, Team Bass had a great question. Is there another word used other than but, so to not erase the statement?
Well, the word and, for example, if you said, I'd like to go and I can't afford it, it doesn't erase anything. It's connecting the two. And some people will say that. So you say, oh, did you like to go? But you really, so you can't afford it, but you really want to go. I want to go, or I can't afford it. I would like to go. I can't afford it. So I'm going to stay home tonight.
Okay.
And our words
and Team Bass is just clarifying, and they're asking other than the word and. So is but and the two words that are on each side of the spectrum?
What I'm simply providing you with right now are some word choices that people use without awareness. And I would invite you to think of the different ways that people will express this, and how, because it's not so much even the word, it's what's going on inside them. What's going on inside them is reflected in the word. That's the map part, right? But what's going on inside of them is they'd like to do something and they feel that they can't do it, or they'd like to do it, but they feel that they can't do it. It could be the other way around. I can't afford it, but I really want to go. I mean, I can't afford it and I really want to go. So much of how you then say things will determine, because it's what are you provoking within them in terms of their feeling like they're capable versus feeling like they're not capable. And it's, when you think about it, the crucial part of this is not just about communicating with other people. The meaning of the communication is response you get. So if you say to yourself, I'm broke and I can't get anywhere in life, guess what? If you feel crappy after saying that to yourself, guess what? That's the response you got from your communication. If you say it to another person and they feel crappy, then it's like saying, you never listen to me. You are stupid and I don't like you. If they go, them fighting words, you go, well, yeah, of course. But most people don't understand that when they're talking to another person, here's the biggest thing that I find is difficult with most people, and why learning these patterns is important, but something else is truly important. You have to be able to respect people enough to entertain what they're saying without wanting to change it.
Say that again.
You have to respect people enough to entertain what they're saying without wanting to change it. People get into fights over politics and religion and what school their kids are going to go to, or finances in their home. And they don't actually listen to each other in order to listen and to understand and go, how did you come to that conclusion? Let me know. Not how the hell did you come to that? But how did you discover that? Because I really want to know, because maybe this would be important for me to know too. Your pathway might be important for me to understand, so that I can do the same thing, as opposed to, oh man, you're so full of crap. I would, and fights start. So understanding that people communicate what's important to them all the time, and they communicate limitations, and they communicate false beliefs or limiting beliefs. They communicate what they're not able to do. They're also communicating their hopes and their dreams and what they do want, even if it doesn't come off that way. And so what the response is, think about it. If I give you the finger and you give it back, I shouldn't be surprised, right?
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, people say, well, that's an invitation for someone fun, and you can take it different way. I learned power when I was very young. Somebody gave me the finger one time, and I blew him a kiss in California. This is back in the 70s. And a guy blowing another guy a kiss at that time, it's not any better necessarily today, but at that time, the guy nearly drove, his car into another car. And I went, ooh, this is powerful. So everybody gave me the finger. I go, mwah. And so I'm driving with my mom one time down the street, and I did something stupid. I was the one at fault. I did something stupid. The person gave me the finger. I said, Mom, watch this. Mwah. Person ran a red light, and I realized I need to be very, very careful. With great power comes great responsibility. I didn't want the person to get killed or kill somebody else or hit someone in a crosswalk. I just did it out of awareness because I was so enamored with the power I had discovered in it. So,
well, and that's a choice.
Yeah, it is about choice. Rex, and it's understanding that the responses you get are the way they understand your communication. And so you can't blame them. You have to say, what can I do to change the way I'm communicating so that I get more of the responses that I want to be getting, and or so that they understand better the points that I'm attempting to make. If you blame them, you're missing out. And so many people blame each other all the time. Parents, kids, spouses, significant others, bosses, employees, and it's all about excuses, and no one takes responsibility. And what we want is for people to take responsibility for their own communication, for what they suggest to themselves, to you, in your own head, and what you suggest to other people. So the world becomes a nicer, kinder, gentler, wonderful place for all of us. So we all win, win, win. So yes, right. You can continue the conversation with us. Would you like to do that? If you would, say yes in the chat room, raise your hand, and I'm going to pass it to Brigitta. I hope this has been helpful for you.
What a great conversation. And Rex and I, we could go on and on and on about this, because we only scratched like the very surface, just a tiny little bit. And yet, how powerful is it? And I walked away with a new insight and with a new way of seeing the word but. Well, thank you for that, Rex, because as a leader, I continue to learn and I invite you to do exactly the same. So continue to have a conversation with us. Put it in the chat box. For the first 5 that put in the chat box, I want to have a conversation with you. Just put it in the chat box and say me, M-E, just me. We're going to continue the conversation. We're going to invite you to a conversation and have a quick call and see how we can continue to serve you. For the first 5, we're going to have the Milton language patterns checklist that we're going to send you. And as Rex said at the very beginning, this is truly only the beginning. This is a beautiful conversation. Rex, thanks for being here. We're going to do this again. We will share the recording with everyone once it's edited. And for the ones that have reached out in the chat box and said, I'm in, please also follow Rex and myself and the Center of NLP. Make sure that you get Rex's book. Rex, you got your book. Well, you have it in the background.
Yeah, if they go to rexsikes.com/book, they will get the book, and or they can get it from Amazon or wherever books are found. And it's a powerful book, discusses some of these things, and but it is about how you can change your life. So, and that's my website, rexsikes.com. And we hope you join us. We do really hope that you join us and discover all the incredible things that await for us as we continue this journey, because it's you know, I always consider myself a tour guide. Some people consider themselves, but I'm the kind of person who wants to go, oh yeah, avoid that. You don't want to step in that. And oh, look at that beautiful thing. Oh, look at that. Isn't that amazing? Oh, how marvelous. Are you having a good time? So come join us, have a good time. And while you're having a good time, learn these important, powerful, positive skills. And even I've got people who come, and I know Brigitta does too, you know, who are master trainers who come and do programs with me still, and again and again and again, because they want to learn, or they've got the ultimate home, you know, NLP home study program, and they listen to it again and again and again, because they understand that spaced repetition in between the time you were exposed to something and the time you were exposed to it again, you may change, especially if you're utilizing and applying these skills. So if you are, that's great, because, you know, people come in and say, I didn't know you said that. And I go, I've heard it like 10 times. And then I finally heard it. I go, you're aware when you're aware. That's why the statement, when the student is ready, the teacher, the learning, or the, you know, appears, because it's in that moment that things become available. It's all through awareness and noticing. So much love to you.
Thank you, Rex. Thank you so much. And that's the main reason why at the Center of NLP, we allow you to retake the practitioner course over and over again, because you're going to learn new things every time you take it. Rex, thank you for being here, guys. Thank you for taking the time. In the chat box, one last time, put in, what is one thing, one phrase that you walk away with, one idea, one phrase, something that you learned today that you want to anchor in and share it with everyone else that you have learned today. Put it in the chat
While
box.
they're doing that, I want to say one thing. I really respect and honor you for showing up, for being here, for being a part of this, for taking the time, the energy, and the effort to arrange your day today so that you could be here and maybe learn some things or apply some things or connect with us in some way, because I respect that, because your time is valuable. We wanted to make it valuable for you. And not everybody who's invited shows up, but those who do are the people who can benefit the most. So I appreciate you. I really do. You know, I honor you for trusting us with your time.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And thank you for sharing what you are taking away from today. Make use of it. It's all about learn, do, teach. It's all about win, 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 and making sure that you're implementing right now. Rex has given you such incredible nuggets. Stay in touch with us. We're going to send this out to everyone that was on this call today. So thank you, guys. Make it a great weekend. Rex, thanks again. Talk to you guys soon. Ciao.